Hi, my name is John, and welcome today to a special edition of the Experience Cafe in partnership with XIO this morning. And I'm joined by two fantastic guests to talk something that's really topical around diversity. And it's recently just been Women's Day, and I think there's gender diversity, but obviously there's a broader topic there. But first of all, let me introduce my guests. So first, Nicoleta Raportaru, if I'm pronouncing that. Okay, sort of got it right. Raportaru. So Nicoleta, you've obviously been quite distinguished in this area. You've recently won Role Model of the Year award at Women in Tech. That was in 2021. You're currently a finalist and runner for the current competition around Women in IT Diversity Initiative of the Year award for this year. And so fingers crossed, good luck on that, and talk a bit more about that in a minute. And then joined by Aidan Moran as well. You're the CEO of XIO here in the UK, who's got a very new perspective on diversity and inclusion, and actually got an award from the MCA in 2022 about inclusion. And so I've got two distinguished guests here to talk about this topic, and look forward to getting into it. So I thought it might be worth starting with how do you two define diversity? Because obviously it's quite topical. There's different angles to this. I'm curious to get your perspectives. Maybe Nicoleta, I'll start with you.
Sure, I can start. I'm going to start with first gender diversity just because it's International Women's Day. So obviously that's a very important landmark for us. But diversity is not just gender diversity. So we're talking about everything from neurodiversity to LGBTQ+, and other elements that probably we don't even know about yet when it comes to race. Well, the race is the other element, which is quite known, but other elements that we don't know. So when it comes to diversity, it's not just diversity, the physical diversity, it's more about diversity of thought, diversity of actions as well, which actually drives an entire perspective and probably different perceptions in the teams as well. Yeah. Aidan.
I mean, obviously, I completely agree with those topics. In addition to that, I think it's very much around the things we haven't seen at all yet. You know, there are talents that people have that they may not present in a great way at the moment, that we think is not a great way because the traditional structures of organizations and companies, the way we reward people, the way we evaluate people, doesn't fit everybody. It's like the classic exams. People don't do exams in the same way, yet we run businesses like they're exams. You know, they have to pass certain tests, they have to tick certain boxes. We think people are brilliant if they can talk, if they can sit in an environment like this and actually present themselves well. Oh, they're great, let's promote them. And I think we've got amazing people that have got talents that we just haven't even tapped into yet. And for me, that's D&I. I think that's something we need to look at and explore over the next few years, in addition to gender. And
no, I love it. I think you're spot on. Yeah. I don't think organizations are ready.
No.
Now, just there were some interesting stats we were looking at earlier about the fact that, you know, if you just take the lens of gender diversity for a minute, where, you know, the population is roughly 50-50, and you also got non-binary folks. And if you look at the IT industry or the tech industry in general here in the UK, only 25% of women are represented in the industry. If you look at professionals, early professionals, there's a reasonable balance there, but as people progress higher, that quickly drops off to less than 10% in senior leadership positions. And so I guess one attitude could be, well, what's wrong with that? You know, so let me ask you the question. Why is it important? Why does it matter? What's the value you see in promoting diversity?
I should start, yeah. I can talk for hours about this topic, so I'll try and be succinct, but I'll start with the business angle. So we've done a research in IBM in 2021 that showcases that 61% of organizations, so having women, senior women in exec leadership position, brings 61% improved in revenue. So it's not just good for the look and feel and the diversity and inclusion, it's good for the business. Now, for me, it's going back to the points we were making earlier, is the diversity of thought, diversity of leadership styles as well, which as the generational change, yeah, we're going to generation, I'm a millennial, I'm going to generations that I had to put that in. They are looking for a specific type of leadership. It's all of the coaching, the mentoring, the being there, the learning, and this is no criticism to any of the generations, but everyone grows in a different way because that's the world. The world has different challenges at different time. So there is that element of how do you actually become better by embracing different ways of thinking and doing things, by embracing different leadership styles. And there's so many ways we can do that, which I'm sure we're going to tackle as we go through the interview. But I don't know, Aidan, I'm sure you have.
I agree. It's also just purely from the business perspective and that profitability as well. If you think about it like that, we need to access this other way of viewing the world to be able to be more competitive and work with our clients and give them the competitive edge. That's just from a business perspective. Just from it's the right thing to do. If you look at the stats that you just said, it just doesn't seem correct. It feels like we're penalising a percentage of the population and not giving the opportunities we should. Now, if all the opportunities are there and all the fairness is there, and then it's not chosen, that's completely okay. I mean, that is all about what we should put in place. We should give people the same challenge, same opportunities, and put the structures in place to make it accessible as well. Because I think, going back to what I was saying about these talents that people have that we may not see, just interviewing someone, you may not, just traditional interviews are not necessarily the way they should always be and get the best from someone. So it's also thinking about that. Once you bring those people in, you're then accessing a whole part of the population that you didn't access previously. You assumed that they should work in this way. You assumed your systems and your business should work in a certain way, and you're not tapping into people. It's this bias that people have that without even thinking about it.
Yeah, and I guess if I reflect on that, if you've got diversity in representation, you effectively have got representation of all the target markets you're looking to address.
Exactly.
And gender is just one lens. The ethnicity and all sorts of other things.
Absolutely.
In terms of how you address that. The great example I have early on in my career was also diversity of thought around thinking about different things. There was a great little exercise we did around you need to pack your bags for the moon, and you get a pick list of you can only take 10 things, and what would you take? And you do the exercise on your own, and then you do it as a group. And the things you come up with as a group, the outcome is that much better because you've got different perspectives than any one individual. And I thought that was a great way of kind of bringing that home in terms of that thought.
So, on saying that, I think what's amazing in our projects, if we think about our projects and the way we work on with clients, making sure that all the team have a voice brings such higher quality to the end results as well. And I think that's just a tangible benefit of what we're talking about here. Because some people will feel if they're introvert, if they don't feel like they can voice themselves, or they're imposter syndrome, or all these sort of things that they're scared to actually present that information, that's not great for us as a business or for our clients or for working with the wider community. If we can open and tap into that, the possibilities are endless. I think it's amazing. That's why I'm very passionate about this. I'm sure it's the same for you. There's so many things that we can do. We just need to open that lid and see what's there.
Yeah, and get in that that collaboration, inclusiveness, as opposed to just representation and numbers, right?
Exactly, and I think that's the important thing.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. It's not just a representation. It's about truly being there, truly being included, because let's be honest, and we're seeing this, gender diversity is probably the easiest to actually track. Yeah, because you go in a room and then you'll see it's one woman and 10 men or something. So and in consulting specifically, and I'm sure a lot of in the business and industry as well, there's a higher demand now to have women in senior position because of the entire pledges that our companies are taking on D&I. But we still have, it's a century of catching up we need to do. It doesn't mean it's not progressing. It is progressing, and we can see that in the numbers. But in order to actually really see this accelerated in a bit more of agile, not waterfall way, we need some radical changes in the way that organizations work and organizations set up their KPIs as well. Yeah. If we want to really not wait another century to actually be 50-50 and probably reduce that by at least 50%.
Now, in terms of, so we discussed there's a significant gap, and we believe that there's significant benefit in closing that gap. So what's holding us back as a society or as organizations or as individuals what are some of the challenges or some of the things that you see in I guess it's about once you're conscious about these things, you notice things a lot more. Maybe Aidan, if you'd like to open it up for us.
So I think the primary thing is people think it's just too difficult. I think that is something where it's another thing to deal with on top of all the other things that people have to deal with. It's a challenge that is hard to quantify and look at. And I think that itself is really difficult. And also sometimes people think it's not an issue, and that comes down to the unconscious bias. That comes down to if you have seen something the way it's always been and it's okay, and you're not even aware of the challenges, then it's okay. It continues to be okay and things don't change. So I think once you've realized that you need to make change and you need to take action, there is work involved, and that's where it becomes a bigger challenge. People start off with great intentions, but don't end. They kind of let it drift. It starts off as an initiative, as a campaign, as something that you advertise and say, we're really committed to this. But the follow-through is what's important. And I know we'll probably discuss that in more detail, but the challenge is that inertia. Let's get it going and then stick to it. Because there are days when I think it is challenging to keep pushing and keep thinking, is there something else we can do? Because you think you've done so much and committed so much time to doing something, making a change and being positive and having conversations like this, which I think is really critical. It's easy to then go, well, actually, I've done enough. But it continues, it's every day. And that change that you say, that 100 years, that catching up, just needs that work. We need to keep pushing at it. So I'm hopeful in the future that just changes. But it's a slow change, unfortunately. We can make dramatic changes, but there are other places where maybe it's to chip away a little bit. More traditional organizations, larger organizations, it will take time to push that. But the topic should be there. It should be always talked about. And the more we do this and we don't let it go, that's where I think it's going to work well.
What about your experience?
So I think for me is I don't manage an organization. In IBM, I was a people partner for the distribution sector, which is focused on, it's probably one of the largest, diverse, because we're talking about diversity from a type of clients. And what I've managed to do in that sector was create a series of initiatives where we put the D&I at the top of the agenda. Now, all of the success we've had in the sector is based on having the right support from the leaders. So having the sector lead fully behind our initiatives was the key of the success. Obviously, the drive and getting all of the people engaged was the other one. So my background is change management. So this is basically kind of managing an entire change process in an organization. You find the sponsor, you find the team that's going to drive that. You have the change champions around, which are going to be all of the leadership team and the senior people in the organization. But also, it's about the way we approach the change. It's not specifically in, for example, one of the initiatives we created in last year is now going in the second year. It's the Make a Story program, which you mentioned. It's the D&I initiative of the year. So the success of that story started with my idea, because that's something that I'm passionate about how do we improve women advancement in our organization. And there's a lot of programs right now in our organization and outside in clients, and we're talking about talent programs for women. We're talking about mentoring, we're talking about coaching, and this is all great. But remember, we all have mentors and coaches. What we're missing is sponsors. We're missing that path, support to take us to that path of getting, in the exec team. Or is it unfair to the men? Maybe. But you guys had 100 years of being a step ahead of us. So it is a bit more personalized journeys. We're talking about, experiences that we're creating. So it's about personalized journeys for these women, making sure that we bring that diversity angle at senior level as well, not just you mentioned the more kind of entry levels in the organization. And the success of this program, it's all about the sponsorship. It's about providing that vision that you can do things, even if you're a mother or you're not a mother, if you're a carer, which at home, which a lot of women are, we're bringing role models and people that talk about their experience and how they're managing things, because there is one way to have a man coming and talking about their experience because they are facing different challenges versus a woman, and seeing that women can succeed, then that's another thing that helps.
So one of the, if I switch around, so one of the things that are holding people back is lack of sponsorship to break through those barriers, which are sort of implicit and not necessarily conscious of in the organization.
Yeah.
Almost institutional barriers.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so you need to kind of extra help to kind of cut through that and break through that, right?
You need to create, so don't just talk about diversity and inclusion. Create the right approaches to actually drive that. And we're talking now about people that are in an organization, but what do you do when you want to recruit a diverse talent in your organization? And a lot of organizations say, yeah, we're recruiting diverse, we're changing our job profiles. That's the easiest way to actually use the right wording so that women are applying more for the jobs. It still doesn't work. So you need to take a radical change. And I was at an event a couple of months back, and the CTO from Barclays was talking about how she is managing that process. And a radical change, which probably a few organizations will not take it, is specifically just recruit women. Don't recruit women because they're women, recruit women for their skills and capabilities, but focus those roles on just getting CVs for women. Because yes, it might take a month longer, but you will get that right individual for the right position. And that sends the right message. But that's a bit more, I honestly don't know how many organizations will do that. I don't know, Aidan. I'm sure, from what you told me, I'm sure you'll be one of the organizations who will do that.
I mean, what you said, it's perfect. I completely agree with that, and that's part of what we did as well. So it was an interesting journey for us. Back in 2020, before lockdown, before the world changed and before things became very strange, we looked at the numbers in our team. It was just one of those conversations we had, which was our gender split, and we just wanted to look at it as a leadership team. And it was shocking, the numbers that we had. It was, and I can say the numbers because I'm quite happy to share it. At the time, it was 12% women, and we had 3% non-binary, and then the rest were men. And it was, I was embarrassed, I'll be honest. That's where it came from. It came from, I looked at that and I said, that just doesn't feel right. And then we looked at the national numbers, when we look at the numbers in tech as well. But everything you said just made me think this is not correct. And we within the leadership thought, right, let's do something about that and make a conscious effort to address this imbalance, because it just wasn't right. And we had fallen into the habit, and I think this is the unconscious bias side. It just felt like women didn't want to work in tech. You know, it was we advertise and we're fair and we thought all these things and we'll recruit anybody. But we didn't have women applying. We didn't have women interviewing. And it was just men all the time. We thought, well, that's just the way it is. You know, it was, and we fell into that. Now, it wasn't a real conscious thing. It was just, it happened until we sat down and looked at numbers and went, this is nuts. This is crazy. So at that moment in time, we just said, that's it. We're changing this. We're going to make an absolute change. And from that moment forward, we said, we're going to just recruit for women. We're going to say, we have these positions. They're highly technical, very senior positions that we want people to join the organization. We're consciously going to go out and look for women. And it was not something to disadvantage men or any of these sort of things. It was, we had an issue and we needed to address it. And so we did that, and we got a great response. I was really surprised by openly saying, we are doing this. This is a conscious choice. We have an imbalance and we want to address it, and we want to have the right people with the right skills and the right level of seniority. We got such amazing CVs and talent that came to the organization. And what compounded that was the culture. So what I wanted to add to what you were saying is, the more you do that, you have a cultural change. And when you have a cultural change, people start talking about it. They talk to their friends. They talk to their social media contacts as well as their network. And they mention what the company is doing. And especially if you do it on a day-to-day basis, if you talk about it, if you feedback and open about it on a day-to-day basis, then people really believe you mean it. It's not just a single campaign or a single activity. It's a continuous thing about your culture. And it's everything that you do. It's you have to be really careful of living what you say. Don't just say, I'm fully behind this, and I wear a big T-shirt the whole time saying, you know, Aidan's behind women in tech. That's not the right thing to do. That's just pandering. What you need to do is take actual action and work through it. And that's what we did. We worked really hard, and we transformed within 2 years, and it was during the pandemic as well. So this was mostly remote. People joining the organization, they didn't know us very well, because normally we try and bring people in, see the culture, see the friendliness, interact with people and get that passion that we have. And we had to do that remotely. We had to do that through calls and through interactions with people. And it worked. And we transformed from that 12% into, in 2022, it was 50% women, and we've now gone to 63% women in the organization. So we've gone. Some people are saying, so now you're going to have a campaign for men. I know. That was the first thing someone said to me when I told them the numbers. But of course I'm not. What we have is a beautiful situation right now, which is truly this kind of equity and equality that we say, right, well, whoever's the absolute right person, whoever they are, whatever gender they identify as, that's cool. We have no issues in that, and we're continuing to do that. And if we end up with 80 or 90% women, you know, 100 years. There's a way of catching up, you know, where we swing the pendulum a little bit and then go back. But I don't believe that'll happen. I think we'll end up with a nice balance which will go backwards and forwards across that 50-50 number, which I'll be really happy about. But
and do you see that consistent throughout all the levels of your organization?
Yes, but not as much as I'd like.
Okay.
So we have at our most senior level within the board. So we have 25% representation. So we have women in the leadership team. So that's really good for us. I want more, but we're kind of building that. We need to build people into the right skill sets to feel confident enough to move into those positions. We have an extended leadership team, which is, it's not far off that as well. It's probably 20% 25% representation of women. But I'd like to push that further. But it feels like we're on a journey. It is very much an organizational constraint right now, where we have people like me that's just stayed too long. I mean, maybe that's. I've been joking about that with people, so I need to move, and then the next, and we kind of filter the organization. I think some companies are like that. I think you are limited by maybe the shifting of positions and moving of positions. But I am pleased the journey we've had in the last 2 years, especially the 2 years that we had while we were trying to achieve that. I'm very proud of what we got through.
That's fantastic. And I guess the kind of, in terms of both your journeys, as in a leadership position or as a practitioner, as a leader in a functional position, I guess, what would your advice be for folks trying to make a difference, make an impact? And there's different perspectives, right? There's the leadership and management perspective, that someone like yourself who's kind of looked at the numbers and gone, this isn't good. And then there's the practitioner perspective that says, actually, how do I make a difference in this organization? I perceive things and how they could be better, and how do I make an impact, or how to make a difference, and kind of drive a different culture. Maybe we'll start with you, Nick.
Yeah, I was just, because I love the story, and I completely agree with Aidan. The pendulum is not going to move from one year to another. It takes time to actually take the people through the journey. But for me, probably the first thing I would say is the passion. Because if you don't have the passion, if you don't believe that the value that D&I can bring for the people around you, for the organization, then things will not, as you said, they will start, but there will be no one to drive them. And I think that's where a lot of organizations sometimes fail, because there are two ways to do it. You either find someone who's really passionate about it and spends nights and weekends, I'm sure you're doing as well, driving this, or you align with the business KPIs. Because as a business, you will care about your results. So if you want to have 50% board women, then you'll make it happen. Because bluntly put, your bonus depends on that. But I think it's still, even if it's in a KPI, you still need to have that passion, because that comes across when you talk to people about it, and it helps drive things. But the passion is nothing if you don't have the right sponsor and the right leadership to actually support it. And I think that's why from the change I was able to drive in our sector was because I had that. And I'm not taking that for granted, because I tried different things in other organizations that probably didn't have the same impact because I didn't have the right support. So I think it's a mix of things.
So from your perspective, it's about being passionate about the topic, and then finding the right sponsorship to give you the oxygen to make a difference, right? And to make an impact. And
finding followers, because people care, but they don't have the opportunities to show they care. That sounds probably a bit, but when I created the D&I Council and the Make a Story program, all of the members of the leadership team are sponsors in the program because they care. But the other thing I've did with the Make a Story program is we're just not focusing on the participants. We also have a pillar which I'm really keen on, is pay it forward. So it's not about impacting a small group of people. It's about how them in their turn also do the same and pay it forward and supporting other women. So it's about how do we scale things with the support of the people in the organization without actually having mandate to do that.
Yeah, almost create that sort of ripple effect.
Yeah.
And amplify the behaviors and the culture that you're looking to achieve.
And anyone can, you don't have to be a CEO, although obviously it helps. But anyone can, as a graduate, as an apprentice, you can do that.
Great. And Aidan, you're coming from a slightly different perspective. What would your kind of
I think
advice
everything you said, it's what's wonderful. I agree with everything you say. Obviously, I agree with that. The passion is so critical. From a position of leadership, the nice position I'm in is making a choice and then executing that choice. So that's the sponsor. I'm not looking for a sponsor. I didn't ask for permission, which sounds terrible, but I didn't ask for permission to do something. We sat as a leadership team and made a choice, and then we executed that choice. So that was the luxury of the position I'm in and the luck that I have. And so I continue to do that for as long as I'm allowed to do that. So if I move from that position, then so be it. But I'll never stop that passion being there, which is what you're saying. But I think to add to what you said is giving people the time, because this is not something that you just say you do and it happens. It takes time, and people need to think about it, and people need to follow through on it and have conversations about things and look at challenges that you have and take the benefits from that. Now we've actually, as an organization, we've improved over the last 2 years in our productivity and our work and our reputation within our clients, all those, and I believe that is because of both our culture but also the diversity of the team that we have, and also how comfortable they feel within the organization. They feel like the company's supporting them, they feel like they're listened to, and that's gold. I mean, that is to have your clients actually make comments and see that your team just act differently because they seem so comfortable, so supported. Makes me very proud as well, because I think that's something that as a leader I can help with and show on a weekly basis when we talk about these things, when we sit together as a team, we talk about that as well. We don't drop the subject, we continue to talk about it, and we ask them what they want. What do you want to talk about?
And what's the best way of where we see behaviours that aren't inclusive or counter to supporting diversity? What's the best way to handling that situation for people? Maybe as a takeaway, because everyone's at different stages of the journey, different levels of conscious bias and unconscious bias. For people who kind of see this in the day-to-day work environment, how would you handle that, and what would your recommendation to folks be to help improve the situation?
It's a tough one. I would say for me, because it is still, with all due respect, the men that would be looking at this video, it's still a men's world. So for me, male allyship is really important. Having a woman's back, and Aidan, you were talking earlier, you're very good at that. We talk a lot about, I've been in so many meetings where I was the only woman on the call. And I'm lucky enough, I have really great colleagues, but there are still instances where, people didn't listen to me or spoke over me, so it's basically having that support, knowing that you have that support as a man. You are there to support the women that are on the call and help them grow, and back to the sponsorship. For me, that would be the biggest thing. If we grow a network of male allies, I think the change will be accelerated as well, because men will understand what it means for a woman to be in that position.
I think it's really interesting you said it, because I'm just playing back in my own mind, like real situations, real challenges. And one that pops to mind is very much if a woman is in the call, it's not always the case, but say if there's a woman in the call and makes a statement, an answer to a question, and then it's repeated by a man, and I think we were talking about mansplaining, all these other things, but this is a specific example. I've seen it multiple times. And then the idea is taken because the man said it. I know it sounds old school and kind of old, it happens and people go, oh, that's a bit cliched. But I've seen it happen. And the challenge is, do you call it out at the moment and make it a thing because it's kind of interesting? Or do you just offer the support to make sure that person knows that you've observed that poor behavior, to allow that person to feel confident the next time that happens? Because I think we need to change behavior on both sides as well, to give people more confidence to feel, actually stand up for myself. I said something that was quite right, and in a professional way, represent it and go, well, actually, thank you for highlighting my idea. I just, we'll come back to my conversation.
If you go and I completely agree, because if you go and talk to the women at the end, it's like, I will make sure that people know that was your idea, versus saying in the meeting, the other people, the other men around the table will realize that as well. Yes. So that part of the unconscious bias would be more present in a way, and it's an education. I see it as an education opportunity, if I'm honest.
I've actually done both ways, right? So, and I'm not sure which is and it may be a situational thing.
Yeah, true.
And I think I don't think people are coming from a position of maliciousness. There might be a small percentage of people that are they're deliberately doing things, but I think that's with everything. I don't think it's a standard position that people are being insensitive or directly trying to be rude to someone. maybe that's me being positive, but I think that's generally the case. If somebody's undermining a woman in a call, we need to call it out, and I think you're right. I think that we need to showcase that and have it. So I think it's okay for people to be unaware, but it's our job to then highlight that.
Great chatting to you too, getting your perspectives. Hopefully our audience has learned something, gotten something out of the discussion. Certainly it's been great to hear your journeys and all the things that you've both been up to and recognised in the industry for. And congratulations once again, and hopefully good news for you in terms of this year's award. And we look forward to speaking to you and catching up soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.